Present.
Present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Board. I'm excited to be here this evening. We've got some important updates and information coming this evening, and we are going to go first into, I think, some really important strategic work that the Board committed to this past winter in thinking about how we reflect on our continuous improvement process. In June of this year, the Board approved an equity and rightful presence policy. And this policy called for us to really rethink and envision a place in our district where all students are thriving. And we move from some are thriving to all students thriving. And in that policy, it called for continuous improvement. Well, how do we know if we need to improve? There are lots of different ways. If you have often our wives may tell us, or our partners may tell us, or our children may tell us that we have to improve. But in districts, there are lots of ways we do that. And one of the best ways has been known is really getting a third party that's really benchmarked to give us honest and feedback, and really to give us both our strengths, to think about what are the strengths of our system, what are the highlights, what are the things we're doing really well. And boy, in 308, we are doing a lot of things really, really well. And also those opportunities or exceptions you will hear about where we have to arise and how we do that. And so tonight, I'm thrilled to welcome Kay Coleman, who will be leading us through a presentation, and also Dr. Kincaid. And we'll also have with us Ann Cummings-Bogan, who is here, who is a consultant and a strategic partner in how we are approaching the results and thinking about the results to this work. So, Kay Coleman, welcome to the mic.
Madam President.
Yeah.
Is it on?
Not yet, almost.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Calgatti, and all of the senior staff and other staff in the district. Thanks for being here. I thank you for inviting me to be here. It's my pleasure to come back to this district and do a bit of a presentation. We've worked all day to day with various groups, with principals and district leadership and union leadership and a variety of different populations. And my purpose today and tonight is to spend a little time with you really looking inside the audit. This is going to be a very brief presentation. I think you all have an executive summary. I see them around the room. And so the executive summary is the piece that is really a summary of all the information that's in the full audit. The full audit is a huge report. It's about 420 pages. So we'll talk a bit about process and how this has worked for you. The important thing, I think, to remember is what the audit's central question is. And that is what you see on the screen. To what extent does SD308 have you established a coordinated, valid, and comprehensive curriculum and the organization to support and guide teaching and learning in the classroom? So bottom line, this is about kids learning. And I suspect that's why everybody that's in this room right now is in this room. It's about how do we support kids learning. The foundation of this model is the alignment of the written, taught, and tested. So when you see this triangle, curriculum at the top is the work plan. It's the definition of student learning, what it is we want our kids to know and be able to do, and being very thoughtful about that. This isn't purchased materials. This is that, what is that curriculum? You have state standards, and then at a district level, making the decisions about how do we lay that out for folks. Teaching is the work, it's delivery of student learning. And assessment is the work measure, determining if learning has occurred and to what extent. That's kind of the core of the curriculum audit and what we look for. Quality control is alignment. The bottom line is alignment is the key to being sure that we have improved performance and improved achievement. Alignment has to be supported and facilitated at the district level. Alignment has to be realized by teachers and principals at the school level. Everything taught in classrooms prepares kids for anything they may encounter on any assessments or in real life. We believe in no surprises, so that alignment piece is going to determine how kids are doing and what the overall effect is. The relationship between curriculum, the district part in that alignment is the relationship between curriculum and what's assessed, curriculum and test. That work is defined at a district level. I hit the wrong thing here. Alignment and delivery at the school level is what is taught, the curriculum that is taught, and what is assessed. So that's that piece, that critical piece to being sure that what is being taught is what is assessed, and also those things that are beyond assessment, beyond the regular assessment. Alignment and delivery is as much about what is taught, the curriculum, and how it's taught, combined with cognition. So we talk about three things: content, context, and cognition, the cognitive demand. Those of you that are educators or have been in education know full well about Bloom's taxonomy, which is came out of University of Chicago, I believe, years and years ago, really looking at the levels of cognition for kids. If what we do primarily is stand and deliver, and we just expect factual knowledge from kids, the learning level is way less than if we expect serious application. So thinking through that is an important part. The audit examines how well different departments within the system and different levels of the system are working to manage and support the curriculum design and delivery to achieve and maintain alignment in those three dimensions: content, context, and cognitive. There are things that in our world we say should be held tightly at the district level. That's the ends. That's the vision. That's the mission and philosophy, the goals, the standards, the priorities, and student objectives. That's the curriculum piece. What students are walking away with to mastery, the learning that is happening, and student assessments. So student objectives and student assessments go hand in hand, as well as program goals, vision, and mission. The flexible part, we used to call this tightly held. In your audit report, you'll find tightly or loosely held. Now it's called flexible, so where we get more flexible. But at a school level, that addresses the means, not the ends. The ends are defined at a district level. The means are defined at a school level. That means instruction. That means strategies and approaches and groupings. So if I'm a teacher in this classroom and the teacher next door to me is teaching the same content, it may look different, but the learning outcomes are the same in both classrooms. So strategies and approaches are in the hands of teachers to say, what do I need to do differently because this little group is not getting it? What am I going to do? Do I group them differently? Do I teach them differently? What is it I need to do? Staffing needs to be flexible. Processes need to be flexible. Resources and materials. Although within, I want to caveat this, within written curriculum, there is an expectation that resources are defined. But there's not any one set of resources, any place in the world. People frequently will call that curriculum. It's resources. Curriculum is what we want kids to know and be able to do. The resources are the materials we use to teach kids. There's not any one set, any place in the world that will be appropriate for every learning outcome for a student's coursework. So there has to be some flexibility there and program implementation. Audit looks at 5 big areas. The first one being vision and accountability. We call these focus areas. And vision and accountability is, in that area, we look at policy, we look at admin procedures, we look at planning, we look at the organization of the school system. How does that all support teaching and learning? And when there's mismatches, we will talk about them in our findings. The second area is direction or curriculum. What is it what are those clear and valid objectives we have for all students? What's the curriculum say? Kids are going to walk out of here knowing boom, 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 and being able to do that. The third focus area is internal consistency and equity in programs. It's a big one, and it's a big finding for you all. We'll talk about that in a second. The fourth area of focus is feedback. So as a system, do we use the results of our student assessments? Do we do program evaluation to improve, adjust, or sometimes terminate programs? Do we use it that way? And the fifth one is productivity. How do we continually improve in organizational productivity? And in that area, we look at budget, we look at technology, we look at facilities. So the audit pretty much touches every area of a school district with the understanding that what we're about is teaching and learning and kids being successful. Here's what we saw, or this is what we did while we were here. I had a team of 10 of us that visited the district between March 4th and 7th last spring. We did 310 individual interviews, analyzed over 1,000, not during that week, but during the weeks before and after, of your documents collected for review. We did 574 classroom observations across the district, 2,639 surveys were responded to by parents, teachers, and administrators, and 1,031 student work samples, we call them artifacts, that were collected and sent off to an off-site auditor. Briefly, well, let's start with strengths. Here's the strengths we saw, very clear in this district. There's an emerging vision to service all kids. There's resilient and committed teachers. You have a darn good developmentally appropriate early childhood center. Strong working relationship with your unions and the district leadership, and a variety of engaging programs for kiddos. I want to say that what we do in the audit is we do an exception report. It's not an attaboy report. It's a report that says, here's the standards, and we measure you all as a district against those standards. We only present triangulated data. So if we think we're on the path to finding something and we can't triangulate it, it will not go in your report. So given that, we're going to look just at the area of findings. And I'm going to do it really fast because you've got it all in there, and then we'll talk a little more on the other end on recommendations. That focus area 1, vision and accountability. We looked at board policies and we looked at admin procedures, and their board policies have recently been redone, I think within the last 2 years, maybe it's 2.5 now. But there is, in the area of comprehensive guidance for effective curriculum management and quality control, there's some needs there. The organizational structure that we saw when we arrived was in motion, moving, changing, and we would say that I'm sure it's changed significantly today from where it was, and it needed to. It didn't support efficient and effective deployment of your human resources, and job descriptions didn't provide adequate direction. And the other thing in that finding, or in that focus area, is planning and plans are not fully coordinated and need greater clarity and focus. Focus area 2, curriculum, the key takeaways there are, number 1, you don't have a curriculum management plan. A curriculum management plan is a plan that says, this is how we do curriculum work. The scope, number 2, the scope and quality of the written curriculum is not sufficient. At some levels, it's sufficient. In some areas, you'll have to go into the full report to see what that is. There are some pockets of adequacy, but when you don't have a full scope and a full and good high quality, so there's 2 things we look on. We say, is it there? That's a scope issue. Is it any good? And that's a quality issue. There's 4 questions we have to ask, but those are the first 2. So you've got some curriculum that's been developed. The issues are around quality and scope, so either of those areas are not sufficient. When that's the case, it leaves teachers on their own to decide what to teach. We don't necessarily want that to happen. And teachers don't want that to happen. Teachers want, tell me what I need to teach, and I'm going to teach it, The audit team was asked a 3rd question in this area, in focus area 2, and it was around analyzing the recently adopted elementary and junior high ELA resources. I think they were adopted last spring, maybe while we were here or right after, right in that time frame. And so we don't normally do that, but we were asked to do that, and so we did that analysis in relation to the Common Core state standards, and we found some inconsistent alignment. So it's something that I think people are already working on. I think that's the important thing to say here. Transition period, we came in mid-year with a new superintendent, new administrative team. Things were popping. They were already happening, but it wasn't all finished. And so when we did this report, we were able to say, okay, so this is an issue, and I know that Dr. Kincaid and her staff are working right now on that 3rd piece there. And I know that Brian, let's call it Brian. That's what I've been calling you, so I don't know how to say that name. Brian, how do you say your name? And I know they've been working on the organizational structure, and job descriptions are in motion. I mean, that's exciting. Really thinking about the work that's already being done. And that makes my heart go pitter-patter, just because I know you've already, you're taken off. You didn't wait for our report. Area 3, there's quite a lot of stuff there. There's 5 findings in Area 3. It's about building a system of equity, and by establishing this Department of Equity and Engagement, it's a fabulous beginning. That was happening about the time we were here, so that was a needed thing. Some student populations across this district and within schools are missing learning opportunities due to the lack of access to high-quality curriculum and instruction. District expectations are inconsistently reflected in instructional practices, and you'll go into the report in areas of differentiation, cognitive rigor, engaging instructional practices and strategies, and uses of high-quality sheltered instruction practice. I'm going to skip right over those key, and in addition, in this focus area, you can see it gets long. Professional development plan is missing and not coordinated or delivered in a systematic way, and in the examination, that's student work samples is that piece that I think we collected 1,031 work samples that were sent off to an auditor off-site. And there was evidence of alignment issues in those. And this is a Yahoo for the district. Most of the artifacts demonstrated and expand for higher order thinking. Most demonstrated that. That's a big statement to say most of those student artifacts demonstrated that. Higher order thinking and engaging context with the exception of mathematics. So there you go. You got one of your goals right up front. Differences were noted in how teachers interpreted mastery. We found literary selections that did not represent the diversity of the district. So a lot of important stuff in Focus Area 3. Focus Area 4, key takeaways there are relative to not having sufficient planning for district assessment and program evaluation, the overall scope of assessment being not adequate. So when you do curriculum work, you also do assessment work. And this, the third one that's got that little piece underlined, students in 308 perform above state and national averages on summative assessments. That's a good statement, right? But not all groups of students are performing at equally high levels. Something that has to be really explored. And you use something called FastBridge. Results from that formative assessment called FastBridge do not predict performance on state assessments. If we believe in no surprises for kids, that's important. Productivity, you all know, I don't have to tell you that the district has gone through some tough financial stuff. But the financial health of the district is improving. But you need that program evaluation piece that we talked about in number 4 to help in budget decision making. You need to be able to have program evaluations so that budget department, CFO is able to say, okay, why do you need more money? Help me understand. Let's see what the effectiveness of what we're doing right now is. You don't have program evaluation. You're a big old system. I think you went from pretty small system to pretty big pretty fast. And so that's an issue. There's no long-range technology plan. And we spend bazillions of dollars there. And the facilities plan needs to have a long-range look at it. You've got bits and pieces of things, but you don't have the whole thing. Okay. I could stop right now and say that's just the point. But I'm going to tell you there's a bunch of recommendations. and we're going to fly through them really fast. But you have a summary in your executive summary, but here's how we make decisions about recommendations. Based on the findings, what needs to change systemically to get better? What changes in the overall organizational structure need to improve to be more effective? What changes to the written curriculum? What changes to the taught curriculum? What processes could be improved? What goals and expectations could be more clearly defined? That main focus of all of this is how do we improve student learning and engagement as measured by assessments? Folks, you had undertaken in this district what I call a really gutsy thing to do, doing a curriculum audit. A curriculum management audit takes guts. It takes, for all of you, where you are at any point in time in this process is an okay place to be, but you can't stay there. You have to move on. And our goal is to provide you with the data that can link to the work that you're doing in strategic planning, which I find very exciting because often new superintendents will come in and say, well, we need a strategic plan. Let's get a strategic plan. And a strategic plan gets written without all the data. And then they'll come and ask us to do a curriculum audit. I'm like, it's almost a little backwards. You know, this is great because you've got a ton of data now that can help guide in that strategic planning work. Okay, let's talk about recommendations. Continue with the strategic plan. Make clear linkages with the findings and recommendations of the audit. Address planning in all areas of the district. We never put the plan. I have done about 40 audits in this country, and about 20 of them I've led. And I've never put this recommendation as recommendation 1. Recommendation 1 is usually around policy and admin regs, or admin procedures. But in your district, it was important to put it here because of the lack of plans. So as you move forward, that's why it's in one, that's why it's in that position, because that says to you, this is a priority. We need plans in curriculum management, in professional development, in assessment, in program evaluation, in facilities, and learning environment, and technology. That's a lot of planning, but it's going to come under that umbrella of the strategic plan and then those pieces. But it's all doable, and it can be done in an orderly manner. Our second recommendation is around revising some board policy work and adding administrative procedures to provide clarity to board policy. That work that was done a couple of years ago, it needs clarity. And your current administration knows that well, and they'll move forward with that. Continue the reorganization of the admin structures and revise the job descriptions. Complete the scope of the written curriculum. I'm sorry, I know.
Some people are feeling very affirmed.
You told me today when I walked in, do you know that it says job descriptions 124 times in that report? I'm like, oh, I guess that was a point we wanted to make. And dadgum, he's already doing it, along with his staff. Complete the scope of the written curriculum and revise the existing curriculum for curriculum quality and specificity. It's recommendation 3, and we say our recommendation is to start with the core and then move to non-core, the core courses. Design and implement a coordinated system of professional development that's differentiated, supports the written curriculum, and is focused on producing effective research-based high instructional practices and high levels of student engagement. Establish and institutionalize a system, this is critically important, number 5, for ensuring equal access for every student group to eliminate barriers to access for kids. Critically important. Develop and implement a comprehensive high-quality plan for the design and delivery of services for English language learners. You call them English learners. Just adding my own lingo, English language learners. Develop and implement common, aligned, formative diagnostic and summative assessments for all courses, starting with the core, K-12, and working on the newly aligned curriculum with that area. And begin to organize and create program evaluation, because program evaluation is going to help not all of you as you consider what is it we keep doing and tweak and adjust. What is it that we say, why, if we're doing all these things and not evaluating, and how do we know if it's working? How do we know if it's working? We don't, if we don't have program evaluation going in a system. And it really helps the budget department think about return on investment for the district budgeting process. I have just thrown a ton at you really fast. And I want to ask this of you. Next, questions.
So before we jump into questions, we just want to make sure that, as Kay has mentioned, you know, we have the audit kicked off in really January with collection of documents. Then we had a series of interviews and observations in March. So there has been a lot of work done across the district since then. I mean, we're approaching 9 months since the beginning of the audit. Also connected to what Kay said, we've had the establishments of departments. Dr. Waller was a department of one until the start of this year. Dr. Paul's department did not exist. So we have definitely prioritized a lot of what Kay has presented through the findings, from prioritizing the reorganization, collaboration with our union partners. We have a new board policy with our equity and rightful presence, as well as our call to action. So there has been some specific work done in some of these targeted areas. Through the work of Dr. Waller's department, we have a new aligned school improvement process around the 8 foundations. So as we look at the work of our strategic roadmap and we ready the system for a new strategic plan this spring, we have had enhanced mentoring. We've had extended new teacher orientation. We've had our next gen in teacher residency. So you have seen
MTSS.
we have an MTSS handbook for the first time. Again, not that everything has been fully implemented. We're moving into that next phase of program eval, connection to budget, which I'm sure is music to Mr. Obafemi's ears. So while there's a lot of work still to be done, there has been a lot of work aligned to the curriculum audit, aligned to our strategic roadmap, really through the work, also in partnership with Ann Cummins-Bogan, with our strategic plan, our DLT, our district leadership team, with our OEA members is kicking off next week. So we're really excited about the work that has been done. We're seeing a lot of alignment between our strategic roadmap and the curriculum audit. So we're really using both of those as foundation as we move forward in our planning and preparation. And is there anything that you would like to add above and beyond that? Absolutely.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just here in support. I'm just going to sit down now, if that's okay. Yeah, I just would echo what's already been said, actually, and just want to be a resource if I can add any clarity to the current process. But this is a system in motion, and I think that you know, it's just exciting to be a part of it. So I'm just here as a resource if I can answer any specific questions.
So, you want to go?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, just quick. So I'm thinking about, Kay, what you said about this audit not being a part, it's not a pat on the back, it's an exception report.
Yes.
And I just want to say thank you to the board for the direction and the guidance that we were given, because a lot of what Dr. Kelgati, for the first 90 days, we asked him to go out into our world and explore it and find out what is happening, what needs to be done. And we gave him that time to do that. We didn't ask him to come in and give us a strategic plan right away. Like you said, that is the tail wagging the dog, right?
That's right.
And so I'm Dr. Kelgati, I think, if you think about 6 degrees of separation, I think he's touched everybody in this community. Everybody in our community has either heard from him directly, sat with someone who has spoken with him, all of the different town halls and the meetings that he's had with so many people that gave him what is essentially what was in this report. So we knew from, you know, a year ago what the situation was and what the diagnosis was. So I'm very pleased that the data is just backs up what we already knew. But then now to have you know, the policies that the board has created around equity and rightful presence, which was a huge lift, but took a lot of courage on our part to say to our community that it's not acceptable that some students succeed but not others, and that we want all of our students to benefit from the way we're educating them. And so we're courageous enough to know that this is the direction we want to go. We've hired a superintendent. Now we have a CFO who brings us the data that we need in order to be successful, because we knew we needed to handle that right away. Getting a CFO who could help us understand our numbers, which is, so vital and so important. And we've just done a lot of things. Our board said to Dr. Kelgadi, we want staff development, and we want student learning to be addressed. And so this here is just a product of where we need to go. And a lot of it we're working on. And I'm just excited, and I thank you, board, for like-mindedness and being able to just hang in there with us, as we know there's a lot of work to be done, but that we're going in the right direction.
Well, I think I'm going to take one step back, and I hate really like beating a dead horse on the past, but I think that especially between the transitions of boards with the current board and the past board, we were constantly yelling into this like black hole of, we need this. Everybody will tell you that I am the job description queen. It frustrates me to no end because that's my HR background. But we had former administrators who said we don't need to do job descriptions. So everybody yelling into this hole because we had no systems. And so everything was just falling down. And one of the things that has happened in, I personally would say, record time, is that we have put at least a scaffolding of systems together so that when these recommendations came in, there was a place for them to go. There was no place for them ever to go. And one of the things that really I've seen such a just metamorphosis in the district is the committee work that we're doing now. It is, when you talk about the tech plan, we had already talked about that in our finance and facilities meeting and knew that was something that we had identified before. We wouldn't have even known where to even, funnel those questions or those suggestions and those ideas. The board comes with, their own set of expertise, and we know these things are missing, whether it's finance processes or administrative processes or HR processes or curriculum teaching. So now just even having these basic systems in place and really building those systems has been truly like transformational just within the year. So while it's hard to digest that audit, it's very long, it's 400 and some pages, took a lot of sit downs, but
It's not for weenies.
it was also very, and I told Dr. Kincaid and Dr. Kelgadi, but we've been working so hard because it takes a long time to get this stuff done. And so just the amount of work that's been done in the last year is truly, they say a lot of times about education, it's a tugboat, not a speedboat. And I'm like, no, we gotta move forward a lot quicker. So I'm really excited about that. And a lot of this too was validation that the board wasn't asking for things that were ridiculous or out of the question. It was truly, and we identified this, I think the thing that the board identified at our 30,000 foot view was strong people and strong systems. And when we put those in place, things really started to roll. So it's been exciting to see.
Good. Any other questions?
So I initially had a question, but I'm going to turn it into a comment. And I will go off your point of a tugboat, not a speedboat. I think it took, not to toot our own horns or whatever. I think it took a lot for the district. Probably one of the best things that we did was to hire outside people to take a look at our organization. Yes. And how it works, to get kind of a clear eye on what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And I think this has proved it. My question was going to be, why should the community think that things are different this time? And maybe someone would like to comment on that. But before that, you can already see that some of, as you said, some of these things are already in process. And there are already green shoots that we're hoping are starting to appear. So I guess rather than asking the question, the comment that I would make would be to the community to understand that these things take time. I think that trust is a big issue because there have been many starts and stops over the years. Just kind of hang with us and know that we are slowly making progress, and we all have the same goal in the end. Mm-hmm. So, thank you for the work that you and your team have done.
Absolutely. I think the time issue is an important consideration. You will find in the written recommendations some estimates about how long different things will take by people that have done that work. Doesn't mean it's totally accurate. It means that somebody that's done that work is saying on this audit team that the various levels of expertise, this is about how long it takes. We know that we know curriculum is always ongoing in a school system. We know assessment work is always ongoing. We know that professional development is just ongoing. We're doing it all the time. But when you have it within the structure that says, here's how we're going to do things. We don't just randomly do professional development. We do it with thoughtfulness around, we have a new curriculum for whatever the level is, and we're going to work on some professional development for that, et cetera, all the way through in the various content areas.
Yeah, and you were saying creating a process for curriculum development.
That's right. That's
which,
whole
which,
curriculum.
Which isn't necessarily something that we're...
Yeah, it's called a
that we're
curriculum
strong at.
management plan, and they've already begun that work. And I'm sure that'll be worked on in these coming months and really tightened up, because that will go ultimately in the administrative procedures. So that's the way we do things here. That's the way we do things. So you want that normalization that's how we do things when we write curriculum. And if we need to change things along the way, we change them, but we do it in a document that stays, because people change positions, and often in education, that means we throw everything out. The baby and the bathwater all go together, as opposed to saying, wait, there's some good things that are happening here. Let's hold on to the good things that are making a difference for kiddos, and let's add to what we need to add to make this work more efficiently and effectively.
So that's where defining, detailing our policies with the administrative procedures and stuff
and
like
I
that.
think
That's where, so it doesn't get lost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's doing
So
it
that's going to be an important step.
also through admin procedures, because you've got basic board policy that meets the
Right.
legal requirements.
That's what I was saying, yeah.
So you're certainly going to want to be involved in some of it, and the administration will come to you on the development of curriculum. But I think our development of policy, but admin procedures need to be clear, because it clarifies for everybody. It says, here's what this board policy means and how it impacts you as a school person.
I'm excited about the, this will help in prioritization.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It'll help developing ROIs to make sure we're getting the best bang for the buck. And not necessarily that it costs money. It could be a reorganization, like you were saying. It could be an adjustment. But it's, this will help. Immensely. And it's what, I've calmed down about it, but I definitely was very adamant that we need to start prioritizing appropriately. So appreciate it.
Jared? Amy?
I just have a couple comments. Just a couple comments, like I know that this was something that we needed to do. There wasn't a ton of surprises for me in the audit, although it's very thorough, and I appreciate the kind of map to get to where we want to be. And I know that a lot of work has been done since we initiated the audit, and so I'm glad that that's being recognized. I think this is just another, in so many cases with curriculum, this is all systems work. It's putting together the systems and the structures to make the work happen in an equitable way. And I'm glad people today are mentioning our policy on equity and rightful presence, because curriculum, access to curriculum, how kids get, like all of that is connected to those pieces of our policy. So I just wanted to highlight that and say I think we're moving in the right direction. So thank you. Sure.
And I'll have a little bit of a different take, only because I always have to remember the historical context. And quite frankly, no, I wasn't surprised by any of this, but maybe from a different lens. It's not like any of these things haven't been goals or desires in the past, but I want to remind us that it's virtually impossible to put these things in place without proper resources. So it might differ from your comment a little bit, where having the experience I've had on the board in the past, you're not going to be able to do these things while you're making cuts. You're not going to be able to do these things when your finances are in limbo. We don't have some of those plans in place because it was triage. It was triage for years, and it was reactive. That doesn't mean we should accept that. It doesn't mean we shouldn't move past that, but I do think it's something that we honestly need to make sure that we appreciate and really hammer home to our community, which is, if you return us to the big bright lights and give us a list of things we cannot do, then we need to understand that there are ramifications and they last for a very, very long time. And having instability doesn't help either. And so investment's important, stability is important. I'm pretty sure that's pretty much a private sector sentiment out there. So I'm not saying like we should dwell on the past. We should absolutely not dwell on the past. I don't want to go back to the past, but that's kind of the point. And none of these things, we're not making progress without being in that better financial situation. And so I just want to make sure that we reiterate that piece, because all of this is an investment in the end, and you can't invest if you're sending thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to another school district next to you because you're taking out loans just to make ends meet. So I'm not surprised. I'm very content with where we're at right now, and we need to continue because nobody wants to go back.
Yeah. And thank you, administration, for all the hard work that you've done. It doesn't go unnoticed. We so appreciate it. One thing about this district was, even when we were struggling and having all sorts of challenges, we had good people. We had good people. And so we want to keep those good people, and so making investments in our administration and in our district leadership, in all of our unions, and the ratifications that we did over the past year or so. I mean, I think and I hope that we're sending the message that we want this district to thrive, and we can do that if we just show our people how much they're valued. And I hope that that message is coming through loud and clear.
Can I make a comment about what you don't know until you know it? I don't know where everybody else stood on this, because maybe you've been through it before. I thought a curriculum audit was about curriculum, just about curriculum. And when I sat down for my personal interview, I was like, I'm sorry, what are we talking about? So I was very hesitant as a single board member to approve this cost because I had no idea what it entailed. So I just want to kind of set the scene that in a very positive way, your T team came in and took over the district. It was quite impressive, but you literally took over like a lot of space and a lot of time, and your people really like came in and dug in. And so it's very hard sometimes when you don't know what you're paying for or what you're getting. And I'm not one to want to spend money, but I don't know why we don't do this every year, because this truly is this is what the board really needs to understand. And I remember one of the first things that I would always like say is, why are we not tying our goals to our budget? Like, I just don't understand. Because we didn't have any way to do that. There was no mechanism in place. And Dr. Kincaid will remember where we're like, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? And it's really hard because administration is like a duck. They're like, we're swimming but below the water. They're like trying to, make up for the fact that none of this existed. None of these structures and mechanisms existed. And now the board truly has a way in which to be able to do this. And so nobody could, the administration can't sit here and say, well, we don't have the systems or the people or the this or the that, And so we couldn't figure out, why are you not doing this? Why do we not have job descriptions? Why are we tying our budget to our goals? Why can't you give us an ROI? And it was just like on the hamster wheel all the time. So this definitely paid itself off in spades. And then I have a specific question. When you, and I'm sure it's just, I need more context around it, but the audit team was asked to analyze the recently adopted ELA and junior high ELA resources in relation to the Common Core state standards and found inconsistent alignment. We were very proud and excited of that.
And you should be.
So
And
can you
be.
just give me, or give us context about the alignment, so I understand that from a lay person, not an educator.
The auditor actually did that analysis, taking the state standards, and it's all laid out in finding 2.3. So go write that down and go
Okay.
there, and you can read about it and see what was done.
And I did
And the
read-
deal is, you should be proud of the work that was done, but take that work and notch it up.
Yep. So
Let's-
if we take a look at that finding, in actuality, the alignment is fairly high in terms of the percentage, but no resource will ever 100% be in line with the curriculum, because the curriculum that is written is based on our needs aligned to state standards.
Right.
So because we knew of a pending curriculum adoption, we wanted to make sure that we had that information as a proactive approach. Typically what happens is our teachers spend a year utilizing a new resource, and as they go along, receive that information about it's not as aligned or we have some gaps. So we had asked Kay and her team to look into this proactively, so then Dr. Paul and her department can use that information as they are working on scope and sequence, some summative assessments, and resource alignment. So not only can Dr. Paul, but Dr. Waller and Dr. Dubiel, because we're looking at our ELA curriculum, which is what finding 2.3 looks at for K-5 and 6-8, from the lens of both special ed and EL and gen ed. So Dr. Paul, is there anything else that I missed?
And I just want to make sure we said that out loud, because I'll read it and the board members will read it and the admin will read it. But when you read it, and if somebody's listening and they're like, oh, great, just adopted that. I just wanted to make sure we said this out loud for context for everybody.
Nice.
Thank you.
Dr. Paul?
Go ahead.
And we're currently working on a District 308 curriculum map and scope and sequence that we're implementing within our system that's aligned to not only content standards, but addressing culturally responsive standards as well as social emotional learning standards. So just as you heard today, the resource supports the learning, and we're looking at unpacking that with our teachers and doing that work alongside them this year.
Can you speak to how that's aligned to our strategic work plan that we've been, our roadmap that we've been working on, Dr. Kincaid or Ann, in terms of a response?
Yep, so the ELA work and the SEL work with the inclusion of our universal screener is one of our top priorities within our strategic roadmap. So the work that these three departments are doing almost on a daily basis is very much aligned and looking at this curriculum adoption and implementation through multiple lenses. So these are success indicators and high priorities within our current strategic roadmap.
I think it's important to understand that anything we can do, you can do. It's just an analysis. It's using tools and helping you really look hard. Anything that we can do, you can do better probably. I just think that's important to understand. And I want to go back to your point up front where you said we should do this every year. No, you shouldn't do it every year. It's too intense.
No, and honestly, more a reflective practice than
Yes.
you
Yes.
guys coming in and like taking over.
Absolutely.
I don't mean that, but
Districts will, districts that really are working it and really making the effort to follow the recommendations and move forward will look at this in maybe 7 years, 6 years, 5 years. I don't know what that year is going to be to say, we have done this ton of work. Can you come in and do an abbreviated form of the audit to help us see through that lens? But it's very intensive for a system. I realize that.
Yeah.
I know we're a lot to deal with when we come in because it's a lot of people that have run districts and have done this work for many years and districts and schools. So I know we're a lot. I always want to apologize when we leave. I'm so sorry. I'm sure you're glad we're leaving.
no, I
Because
didn't
it's
mean that at all.
intense.
Just that you don't know, when you say a curriculum audit, I think you're going to come in and do exactly what you did with the ELA.
Yeah.
Not that we were going to do a full systems, top to bottom,
Yeah.
inside out,
Yeah, exactly.
the whole, I just had no idea what
It's
to
called a
expect.
curriculum management audit.
Yeah.
And so really it is.
Yes.
It's a systems audit.
It's a systems
relative
audit.
to teaching and learning. Relative to teaching and learning. Does everything in the system support
Yep.
what's going on in classrooms? So,
And I just want to close by saying that when we talked about it taking some time, right?
yeah.
And then Mary Jo talked about, building the trust and how do our staff and teachers see this as, okay, is this going to be here or is this going to be around? And the one thing that I think our board did, and we sent a message to our community, that we put Dr. Calgatti in place for 5 years. And that should speak volumes in terms of how much we trust him to lead us, to lead this district, and that they can be assured that someone's going to be here to see all this stuff through. So, I just wanted to say that.
I want to just say a few final thoughts, if you don't mind. Recognize people's effort. People are going to work really, really hard, and I've heard you kindly doing that tonight. But keep that up at all levels of the organization, because this is going to take a ton of work. Communicate and be transparent. There's nothing to hide here. There's nothing to be ashamed of. This is a point-in-time analysis, factual analysis of where the system was and and in some cases is still. Remember, process is sometimes as important as the product, taking care of the people in the process. Note that progress, celebrate that progress, celebrate those milestones and benchmarks, because it's being a team that is going to make this thing happen over time. And time, it does take time, a lot of time. This isn't a flash in the pan. This is, we're committed to doing this work over a period of time, and this is being reinforced by the strategic planning process as well. So it's not like we're just doing this to do this, to be an activity. This is serious stuff. And I wish you well in the whole process. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
Dr. Kincaid, can I just ask a question? Any additional thoughts from either you or Ann before we go forward? Or no? Okay.
Ursula, do we have any public comment? Not. Okay, we are passing public comment 5.1. There is no public comment. And so then I would move to 6.1 and invite Dr. Calgatti to give his superintendent report.
Good evening, board, and I want to thank the board for this opportunity to highlight a couple important things. And also, it has become our tradition where there are so many things in a district this large that I invite board members to join in opportunities to reflect and share news and news as well as reflections together. So I want to thank the board for that, for joining me in those comments. So before tonight's meeting, We welcome 4 interested community members to learn more about what it means to serve as a board member of the Board of Education. This was an informational meeting, and as you know, the 4 board terms will expire in the spring of '25 and require elections in April. We will host additional information sessions to provide resources from the Illinois Association of School Boards and the Illinois State Board of Elections to interested individuals and offer them the opportunity to speak with current board members as well as district leaders. We hope that through this open and accessible learning opportunity, we can be a resource of information to anyone considering running for this important service opportunity. And we want to thank our current board members for all of their leadership. Today, September 9th, is Fetal Alcohol Syndrome Awareness Day. This day was chosen that on the 9th day of the 9th month of the year, the world will remember the 9 months of pregnancy and the importance of abstaining from alcohol. This day serves as a reminder of the critical importance of understanding the risk associated with alcohol consumption during pregnancy and lifelong impact on the child. FASD is a complex and preventable condition, including a range of physical, behavioral, and cognitive disabilities. This is a widespread problem, and the CDC does estimate that 1 in 20 children are impacted. We want to join the nation in bringing awareness to this issue, and we want to thank all of our partners and our resources in the community who help bring awareness to this. Tomorrow is National Suicide Awareness Day. It's really important for us to reflect on the resources that are available. I don't take it lightly in bringing this information, but unfortunately it is a significant issue in our world where we have over 700,000 suicides per year worldwide. We know that we have to work to break down the barriers and raise awareness and create a better culture of understanding, support, and resources for mental health. In our district, we have a variety of information regarding mental health available on the homepage of our district website, as well as printed on the back of student ID cards. We engage students in conversations regarding mental health. Activities such as the Coalition and Ascend and Amplify are ways in which we want to promote awareness and inclusion and a sense of community. One particular not-for-profit that I do want to highlight is Elisa's mission and their Signs of Suicide program. It's important that we understand what those look like and really be vigilant in our community. Vigilance can really save a life. Vigilance can really save a life in this instance. In our district, we do also have on our website again, and we also have some key factors around that. Mr. Bell, would you want to highlight a couple of those resources around action?
One of the things that's important to note is every student ID for grades 6 through 12 has information for suicide awareness and mental health on the back of that ID card if anyone is feeling that they need that extra support. Alyssa's mission in particular is a Signs of Suicide program that is available at every level, Hope Squad for the elementary, and then Signs of Suicide for our 6 through 12 students. And so they have the ability to kind of early intervention and prevention for students who may just need that extra support. And so it's been a really good resource for us to use. And surrounding districts engage in that same not-for-profit organization, and it's been really impactful, I would say, not just for our district, but for all of our young people in the area.
In my final thoughts this evening, I want to, thank you, Jeremy. In my final thoughts this evening, I want to acknowledge the ongoing improvements that are being made by our transportation staff to alter routes for greater efficiency. We know that there continue to be significant opportunities, but also that there have been significant improvements. I want to thank everybody for rallying around to increase the problem solving required. I also want to express our appreciation to our transportation director, LaShawn Mosley, who's here this evening. And we want to thank her and her team for all the work that's being taken to diagnose this issue. For example, we know that we have quite a few we have a high level of ridership that aren't even slated for spots on the bus, and so we are working with a system that hasn't really been examined fully, which presents additional challenges and costs, given we are still in a position where that department is definitely struggling in terms of financial, the way in which it's run requires a lot, and Ms. Mosley has actually only been here less than 30 days. So did we hit 30 days, Ms. Mosley? We hit 30 days, great, and you're here and smiling, thank you.
And it's
So
not fixed yet?
It's not fixed yet? No. We appreciate everything you and your team, and all the district is really taking a team effort, so we recognize that. So I want to invite board shout-outs now.
Really quick, though, can I just add,
Yeah.
you can call or text this 988 at any time if you are an adult or a student and you need help. It is the easiest and quickest way to get on the phone with a mental health crisis, to speak with
988.
someone. 988.
988, thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, starting off, National Arts and Education Week is underway. Research suggests that the integration of arts into educational curriculums naturally leads students to interact with academic content, who wrote the sentence, in ways that promote long-term retention, particularly those who struggle with achieving success in conventional or non-arts integrated teaching approaches. Our district celebrates our arts this week and we are always thoroughly impressed by our students and staff talent and commitment to engage in music, theater, creative writing, and visual arts across all school levels.
Yeah.
Yay!
For sure. Your choice of color to fund teacher wish lists, care closets, scholarships, classroom enhancements, and more. Order online by September 13th for delivery on September 28th. Orders can be placed online. Visit the OEHS website today.
This Saturday, September 14th, you can stop by Prairie Point Park between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. to have brunch with the Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee, BPAC. If you can make it, bring a dish to share and be ready for some great conversations.
Who doesn't love custard, butter burgers, or cheese curds? Head on over to our local Culver's here in Oswego tonight, even though it's getting late. So if you want to go, you better get there
Open,
quick.
right?
I don't know if they're going to be open by the time we get out of here, but they're there still now. Don't forget to mention when you purchase that you are there supporting Eastview Academy, Pathways, and Goal programs so they can receive a donation of 10% of your order subtotal. We are one community supporting the great work of these special programs in schools. Thank you, Culver's, and all those involved.
Please join Oswego High. Oswego High School invites the community to join in the fun at their homecoming parade on Sunday, September 15th. The parade will start at 3 p.m. from Oswego High School and go through downtown Oswego. The parade route will include Garfield, Jefferson, Main, Tyler, Ashland, Washington, and Franklin streets.
Ms. Hamilton,
Do you, LaTanya?
Oswego East senior Cooper Carlisle has been cast in the Illinois High School All-State musical, The Prom.
Oh,
He will perform during the yearly Illinois High School Theater Festival at the University of Illinois on January 9th through the 11th as a key event of the festival. Cooper auditioned with hundreds of students from across the state and was cast. He rehearsed over several weekends up until January's performances. Cooper is only the 5th student in high school in Oswego East history to achieve this honor.
hey. And with that, that concludes superintendent comments. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to 6.2, board committee reports. We'll start off with the equity and teaching and learning. Who has comments about that?
I can go. Equity in teaching and learning, we met this week. We talked about a couple things, including some updates from teaching and learning. We're going to talk about today the e-learning plan. Those were kind of the highlights from our teaching and learning committee. There's one other thing, though.
Updates to the board. Oh.
Yes, updates to the board, and then the screening.
Oh, yeah, universal.
Universal screening was also part of our agenda at that time, so that's all.
I just,
Professional learning.
Yep, and they highlighted that there will be some monthly board updates coming from their department on our board agendas. So, and we looked at some of the possible topics for that, aligned with some of the work that we'll be doing in the committee, so.
I just want to add that I know we'll probably get to this, but I don't care. I want to emphasize it before we get there that the e-learning review that was in the works before, like that's something we were already going to do before it got hot outside.
Yeah, yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, the finance and facilities. Who would like to report on that?
The document is well done. So on September 23rd, basically, we're going to be coming to the board with an opportunity to call back bonds, potential, to set parameters around when we would do it and how we would do it and what the advantages would be. 4 new bus leases, that's coming tonight, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's to help handle any breakdowns, as well as to increase capacity. Something we've already touched on today, so that'll help with the overall operations and on time and helping kids learn. Aramark so far has gone well with the quality of the product and the reporting. More to come. I think help me. They're going to be doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the participation rate has gone up a lot this year compared to last year, which I think it's a vote of confidence by their customer, our students, on the choice of food that they have.
That's student participation?
Yes, student
that's great.
participation, yes. And we've also asked Aramark to come quarterly and present to the board, provide update to the board, provide the board an opportunity to ask questions about food service. So then the first presentation for this school year is September 23rd.
Okay. That was the part that I couldn't quite recall.
It's going to be a big day.
Yeah.
September 23rd.
And then looking at opportunities to save in custodial services, radio and repeaters. Repeaters was.
I forgot too.
I forgot.
What it is, it's we have radios now that are outdated that we need to update, and we're doing RP. So it's a way to be able, when you communicate, to be able to go around our district, which is big, and be able to have radio access. That's just
And standardized paper, standardized ways that we're ordering things instead of one-off type of processes. So kind of standardized and convenient instead of just convenient.
Right.
And so. That
All
is
right.
Finance Committee.
And policy
Good
and
conversation.
legislative.
I can't pull up my notes, so I will do this from memory. And Dr. Murillo, you can help me. We did go over several policies that I think are up for review again today. We will be continually reviewing more and more policies as we go on. On the legislative side, we're kind of at the point where I think monitoring is where we're at. Monitoring, looking for updates. We had originally talked about actively pursuing elected officials. I don't know that we're going to continue to pursue that at this time. I think we'd like to keep more abreast of current legislation, how it affects or doesn't affect us, and what our position would be on those policies.
Yeah. The only other thing that we talked about was there is a possibility that we can work, I'm going to say this the wrong way, so I'm going to read it from the notes. The committee discussed that IASB is now again offering to work with districts to update their administrative procedures the same way we did with our policies. So if that is something that we pursue, it would come likely through that same committee.
Yes.
So that is on the horizon.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay. And we're moving on to 6.3, board member comments. Who would like to start?
So we have coming up a very celebratory month. So Pura Vida, Viva la Mexico, right? Grito de Dolores is coming up, Hispanic Heritage Month. 9 nations, I believe, celebrate their independence during this month. So super excited about that. There's it'll be fun. You'll see people with flags out and all kinds of stuff. So only other off comment I'll make is awesome for OHS and their parade. They do a great job, and all of us over on the east side look forward to someday seeing an OE parade. So just leave that out there.
Just putting it out there, just saying. Anyone else?
So I was at a collaborative PE course today. The school had invited the United States Adaptive Golf Alliance in. There were 4 gentlemen from that organization who are actually retired teachers and coaches and apparently pretty good golfers too, to come in and go over golf with the STARS and life skills students. So it was pretty, the instructors were great, and by the way, I would like to thank Robin Smith and John Harrison for the invite. Teachers were great. I would encourage you to go and check it out if you get the opportunity. It's really amazing what they can get some of those kids to do when they kind of let them do things at their own pace. Oh, yeah. And the only other thing, and I had asked if this was the only outdoor type or bringing in from the outside activity. And I'm just throwing this out there. They did say they used to take them, they used to go bowling as well, but that was eliminated because of budget cuts. So just saying, they really had a good time. So, but overall, you know, kids were great. Like I said, instructors were great. It was,
Which
it was a good time. It was at OH.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anyone else? So several of Jared Ploger, our board member, our superintendent, Dr. Calgatti, Dr. Dubiel, and Dr. Swimke attended the Midwestern Plains Equity Assistance Center conference this year. The MAP Center, we've been in relationship with them and in partnership for like the last maybe 8 years, taking off a year or so because of COVID and some other things. But they're funded by the U.S. Department of Education, the Civil Rights Division, and all of their services to us. And we've probably had over $100,000 worth of technical assistance provided to us at no cost to us because of the grant that has been provided. And so they showcased our district this time when we were there. We were able to, they wanted us to share with the participants the work, how we've mobilized our community and the work that you've heard a lot about today. And so that was, it was something that they came up with during the conference because people wanted more hands-on understanding of the work. And so because we've had such a long-standing relationship with them and the work that we've been able to do around rightful presence and equity has been very substantial. And last year when we went to the conference and Dr. Waller was in attendance, that's where, even though we knew we wanted an equity policy, it was literally born in that room because of our understanding of rightful presence, and rightful presence is a concept by which, you know, this is taken up at the highest levels of education. And so we are at the forefront of what is happening in education around equity and rightful presence. And so we can thank the MAP Center for their knowledge and for us bringing that back. The money, you know, just, you know, the travel down in the car is, that gas money is well spent because of what we're getting from that organization. So just want to mention that. Okay, we're moving on to 7.1, the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Yes. Make a motion to approve all items under consent, including 7.1 minutes from the Board of Education meeting on August 19, 2024. 7.2 to acknowledge a FOIA request received by the district. 7.3 to approve the field trips for overnight and or more than 200 miles. And 7.4 to approve the following policies: Section 2, School District Organization 2:70, 2:160, Section 4, Operational Services 4:15, Section 5, General Personnel 5:180, 5:290, 5:310, Section 6, Instruction 6:110, 6:150, Section 7, Students 7:170.
Second.
Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Okay.
Dr. Maria,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Ms. Venmus.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Action item 8.1, approval of district administrator contract. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the district administrator contract as discussed and presented.
Second.
Mr. Cerrone,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton,
Oh, aye.
Dr. Maria,
Aye.
Ms. Venmus.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Dr. Dubio.
All right, so tonight we welcome the candidate recommended for program administrator is Michael Shapiro. With over 20 years' experience as an educational administrator, Mr. Shapiro has served as an assistant principal and principal in several school districts, including Anchorage, Alaska. In his leadership roles, he led professional development, elevated inclusive practices, collaborated with various stakeholders, and advocated for high-quality instruction. Mr. Shapiro brings a wealth of diverse leadership and collaborative experiences needed for this position. Welcome, Mr. Shapiro.
Thank you.
Action item 8.2, approval of personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the personnel report as discussed.
Second.
Ms. Venmus,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton,
Aye.
Dr. Maria,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Action item 8.3, approval of resolution authorizing notice of dismissal. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing notice of dismissal to educational support staff employee Eric Fries.
Second.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Ms. Venmus,
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton,
Aye.
Dr. Maria,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Action item 8.4, approval of bills for payment. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to authorize the payment of bills in the amount of $7,287,716.29 as presented.
Second.
Dr. Maria,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Ms. Venmus.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Okay. Board agreements. All right, good evening, Board. This evening is an opportunity for the Board to review the Board agreements. This is an opportunity to discuss. As we know, board agreements were voted upon last June, let's say June 14th, I want to say, of 23. These agreements serve as an important resource for the board, so I wanted to provide the board with an opportunity to see if there's any further discussion or reflections relating to the board agreements, and it serves as a great resource, and I would just say it's been very helpful.
I just have a comment about this, and for those out in the community, we really do hold each other accountable when it comes to making sure that we're staying in our lane, we're staying in the governance role. This doesn't happen. I don't want to say at a lot of school districts, but there are a lot of school districts that these kind of things don't happen, tragically. And if I'm being honest and completely transparent here, there's quite a few taxing bodies out there that operate not wanting the general public to see the business done in the light, if you will. And so this is definitely an example of us showing the community how we're holding ourselves accountable, which doesn't always happen. This reminds us, but it also gives a lens to the community to realize what standards they should be holding us to, right? We really have no power as individual board members. We're not supposed to, except for when we call these meetings. And this is the place where we are supposed to really conduct business that isn't sensitive, right? There are things out there that we have to certainly go closed session for, and those can certainly be reviewed anytime in OMA. But there are a lot of boards out there that have people who they'll get on a taxing body or they'll get on a taxing board, and the first thing, tragically, they're looking for is how the position can work for them. And I applaud this board, and really my time here on Oswego, I would say the vast majority of board members, the vast majority of time, have certainly held each other accountable, which is great. I have seen some things, though, that definitely I haven't been very comfortable with. But I would say, again, this board has gone above and beyond when it comes to reducing those things. We are here to serve. Nothing is here to serve us. And so I applaud the board and I thank you, because this doesn't happen in all districts. And please take a look at this community, because you can see how we're holding each other accountable, and we do, right?
Yeah.
We do.
So our board agreements, we have a review annually, and we are scheduled to have a review coming up as soon as we get our calendars synced up. And a couple of ways in which we hold ourselves accountable is our board meeting monitoring forms. So after every meeting, whether electronic or in this hard copy form, our board members are asked to evaluate the success or lack thereof of the meeting based upon our board agreements. And then that information is compiled, and we get to see it pretty regularly as to what is the feedback from each of our board members, and where we may need to make some adjustments in our own behavior, or maybe someone is making a suggestion as to how we can do things better. So we do hold ourselves accountable in both of those ways, and we are continually looking at our board agreements to see whether there are things in our board agreements that may be too prescriptive, and we no longer need them in our agreements. And as as a board, we may say, we no longer need that. We're doing really good in this area. And then we may see there's some areas in which we want to add additional board agreements. So this is how we keep each other accountable. This is how we have successful meetings. And this is how building our relationship with Dr. Kelgati continues to, it can be a successful one if we are all adhering to the board agreements. So just wanted to share that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't see any need to, I don't have too many concerns. The one thing that I've learned, I don't know, whatever, the past year and a half or 2 years, whatever it's been, is we're not experts. So we lean on the administration to give answers to a lot of the, questions that are coming our way. So kind of number 6 here, engaging the community and staff. I don't know how to put this in here, but I would like to know if that administrator assigned to that isn't following through. So that would be one of my concerns, because that I think is something that the board should know to keep our administrators accountable. So it's not necessarily how we're handling internally, but that's something that I want to figure out how to address.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you believe that that's our role, or is that Dr. Calgatti's role to hold them accountable? Like, we're holding him accountable because he's our only employee. I just wonder how will you think about that?
That's a good point.
Help me.
Are you referring to follow through on communications that come in?
Follow
Regarding
through
situations?
follow
Right,
through
so-
on communication that come in, because it's I expect that community members are acknowledged and are helped. So when they got a question,
So a couple, great point, and so a couple ways that we can, if I'm hearing you'd like more information, so this is helpful. One of these I can do is that if there's specific, I have a weekly meeting with Latanya and Eugene, and so if there are specific things that come through, we can ensure that that's noted in our record, so you can have access to that, right? So I think that's number one, right? So if there are specific messages or whatever, we can make sure that that gets flagged.
I don't know if I need more information. I just want to make sure that concerns are addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, absolutely, and that is my responsibility, and I take it, and I'm happy to, as things come up, make sure that we are ensuring that every board member is getting that information, and if there's places where we can do better to make sure you get that information.
I'm not even suggesting. I just, over the years, it's just basically, I feel that that's something that I want to make sure that we're doing is
Yep.
following through.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dominic.
I just want to say this reminds me of the first time, one of the first times we sat together as a board and reviewed it. I felt like we were in a very different spot, like we were just getting to know each other. In some cases, some of us had just been, brought on, elected to the board, and we're going to have that same instance likely before the end of, the school year. And so these board agreements are going to live on past this board, and they'll be reviewed again. But I think they have been a good starting point. For me, as when I was a new board member, they were a good starting point for me to understand how to comport myself as a board member in certain situations. So I think they're really helpful. They might change and be tweaked and things like that, just to make the board, the best working board possible, and based on the board members at the table. But I think they give us a really strong starting point.
Yeah, we developed this with the help of IASB.
Yep.
So I mean, this is using best practice as well. I mean, it's
True.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. 9,
Your turn.
okay, so next, thank you for the feedback, and I would just say that in terms of the district administration, we really appreciate the support. We are led by the board, and your governance has really shown through, and our ability to do, and your trust and your faith in our work has really come through. And We know that this is continuous improvement, so we know there will be mistakes, and we appreciate the feedback, or I specifically appreciate the feedback along the
Not
way.
about perfection,
It's not about perfection, but we sure as heck want to try.
striving towards.
Striving towards. Next, 9.2, I'm going to invite Mr. Obafemi to speak to the budget report.
Thank you, Dr. Kogati. I know Board Member Mary Jo asked this question just to get an idea of how we did at the end of the fiscal year. Now, I want to point out that we have, we're not cash basis. We don't have cash basis accounting. We have accrual. So all our financials are actually in the process of being audited right now. So what I'm providing you is a snapshot of what expenses were at the end of June 2024 and what the revenues are. There will be adjustment made. And so if you look at it, what you see there is we actually got more revenue than what we estimated. I will be honest in saying that when it comes to revenue, I'm very conservative in estimating revenue, and I'm more aggressive in estimating expenditures, so there are no surprises. So as you saw, we got more revenue than we had projected. And some of the areas on the expenditure side, we actually spend more than what we budgeted, and there's nothing unusual about this as far as, because as you know, as I noted here, part of this increase was the OEA agreement that we signed, as well as the agreement that we signed with our OESPA partners. We signed a comparative agreement with them, and we know we have to pay for it. Now, the one area that I want to point out, though, that continues to be a stress on the district's finances is transportation. And I did a flash projection that I will probably share with the board once the CPI that will be used for the upcoming levy comes out. And from what I'm saying, transportation is dangerously bad on the district's finances. And we have to restructure our transportation and make sure that we only transport kids who are eligible to be transported. And the state is very clear about the requirement for district to provide transportation. There are 3 different categories of kids who are eligible for transportation. Students who live 1.5 miles from their school, student in designated hazardous route. So we're in the process of getting proposal from 3 firms to actually do a hazardous route analysis. We haven't done that in a few years. And what we're using right now is data, because some of those hazardous route designations were done when subdivisions were just built, and some of those subdivisions are different from the way they are. And then the 3rd category of kids who are eligible for transportation are students with special need, where the IEP specifically called for them to be transported. Somehow, folks believe incorrectly that if a child has an IEP, that child is eligible for transportation, and that child is not, okay? And so we need to, yeah.
It's not
Okay.
automatic.
Yeah, that's,
And so what we do over the years, what we're finding out is we bus just about every child who wants to be bused, whether they're eligible or not. And that cost is putting a dent on our finances. And I try not to be an alarmist, but I can't say it any clearly. If we continue through the path of you get transportation, we will go broke as a district. We cannot afford it. So the 3 categories of kids, the eligible for transportation, all the other kids who want transportation, they have to pay how much it costs us to provide transportation. So I'm talking about the cost of leasing buses, driver's salary, fuel, depreciation, I mean, all the actual costs, so we can no longer subsidize them. If you remember last fiscal year, we transferred $8 million that we borrowed from working cash. And we also levied differently. $5 million that we should levy in the ed fund, we levied in the transportation fund. So $13 million extra. Even with that, we still had a deficit. And the projection that I've done, going back to 2030, we're looking at a deficit that by 2030, we'll be looking at close to $26 million. in deficit if we don't do anything differently about
Wait,
transportation.
wait. Let me in the fund,
Yes.
not as a district.
But it's related.
Oh, no, I know, yeah, it's an
And the-
offset
and the
of every,
transportation
yeah,
fund,
I
yes.
get it. I just wanted to
And
make sure I want to understand the scale.
Yes, it's a big scale. And the interesting thing, you cannot have a fund end the year in a negative. So what it has to mean, the money has to come from somewhere else. So transportation has been subsidized in this district for years with funds, with money from other funds. We can no longer continue to do that. We can't afford it. Now, if we're a wealthy district where we have a huge fund balance, we can afford to subsidize transportation. We're not in that position. And I can't say it clearly enough. If we continue on this path without shifting, we will be in big trouble.
So when was, no, I appreciate this flavor. I don't think I've heard that.
Appreciate the
before.
flavor.
Yeah, but,
Flavor.
when was the last time we did this when was the last time a hazardous road?
I want to say 2015.
So almost
2015?
10 years ago. Now, if you imagine some of the subdivision that were built almost 10 years ago, we know how they develop subdivisions. Some of them have no sidewalks. Some of them now, all those subdivisions now, those kids have sidewalk now. And those areas are probably no longer hazardous, but we continue to provide transportation.
So part of what, thank you for this, and I think it's completely it is completely relevant to our budget fund update, particularly when what the board, we're bringing to the board's attention is that we will bringing you some more detailed information about what those exact numbers are. Because as you can see, we haven't evaluated those numbers since 2015. Consequently, that means that all the ridership that has essentially come into the district since and whenever has essentially been grandfathered in to that. And so there are individuals who are on the buses now. Part of this is that we have to address this because, as Mr. Obafemi has shared, it has a significant impact on the overall fund.
And, you know, I was at one of the village zoning meetings, and I tried to actually kind of stress this point that impacts on us are going to look different than they have in the past. Because if, and I know, Dr. Calgatti, you and I had talked about potentially maybe an addition or an amendment or whatever to what the demographer might tell us next time, but based off of what was said last time, right? And based off of the national fertility rate, the budget, the school bus driver shortage, I said this is going to look very different because all the open areas are primarily south of our schools. And all of our schools are up here. And so if everybody up here doesn't go anywhere and doesn't have kids, these schools are going to sit up here. In some places, it's already happening. In some areas that really don't support, you know, a large enough pool of students, but we sure are going to get them from away from here. Now, one person wanted to take issue or whatever with that committee, or what I said, but and I understand their point about what impact fees are supposed to go for, but at the same time, like, it's going to look different in this district. I mean, you're talking like, I think 25 miles south of here is, from this point, I think, is where we extend to. It's a very large district. And it's not like the busing the shortage of bus drivers hasn't magically gone away since last year or the year before that. These things still continue to be things that we face. And I appreciate that you bring this, but I really encourage like the community, because there's going to be elected officials out there who'll say, hey, we saved you money, we didn't levy. But if they don't have sidewalks in those in some of those places, guess what? Okay, they didn't. But now we're busing, and this is costing taxpayer money anyways.
So it's a scary picture. We made the decision that we need to focus specifically on transportation to make sure that it's solving. What it should be is the revenue that we bring in from transportation should even out the expenses, and that's the way every fund should be, minimally. And I don't think it's ever been like that in this district from the records that I've seen. Other funds have always subsidized transportation, and we cannot continue to do that. We're bleeding money. We have to stop the bleed. So the next page includes, as of the end of the fiscal year, what we have in the way of fund balance. And the conclusion is that when the budget was developed, we were looking at revenue over expenses of $5.1 million. So we actually, before adjustments, we did better than that, 10.6 million. But there will be adjustment. Some of those revenue will be booked prior year. Some of those will be revenue, so there will be adjustment. So the updated financial as relates to this, I'll present to the board once the audit is complete. Our auditors are doing they've been with us doing site visits. This will be the earliest we've done an audit in a very long time. Let's just say that. But we're going to do it they're doing it on time. We should have the draft completed by next month. And it's supposed to be done by December. We've never completed in December. By statute, we're supposed to have a completed file by December. We've never done that. So we are doing that for the first time this year. Any questions?
No, but thank you for these numbers. It helps.
And then if you look at the other pages, what I then did is I went into the financial analysis software, and I presented it a different way. You can see what the budget amount is and the current expenditure, which ties into the summary page that you saw. And then I did it another way. We looked at expenditure, and we looked at fund balance. This is before audit, and how it shapes out. And then we looked at revenue by picture too. You know, some people do better with pictures and graphs, and that's what we try to do here. And so if you look at I did all funds, and I also did revenue and expenditure. So I want to point this out. If you look at the all funds, you see a negative transfer of 6.8 million. What that is when we did the refunding. Remember, we did a bond refunding back in August of 23. We had to transfer that money out, the refunding out, to an escrow agent to pay the bondholders' debt. That's what that $6.8 million transfers. Any questions? What I've also included as part of our financial, so we plan to include information like this on a monthly basis, once a month, as part of our budget report. And something else that I've also included is the CPI report. The CPI report is important to us because it's the basis for the largest source of our revenue, property taxes. If you remember the CPI for December, which comes out in January of the following year, is what determines how high we can levy for. So I think it's important for us to keep abreast of the CPI. This data is released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics every 3 weeks after 3 weeks after the prior month CPI. So what we see here in July was the last data that was released. This week we should be able to get August, which we will put in for next month's financial. What you were saying is, as you've been hearing, inflation is actually softening. Mm-hmm. For example, in June, we actually had a negative CPI increase of negative 0.1 basis point. Now, in July it was 0.2, and in May it was flat. So up to date from July to July, the cumulative CPI is actually 2.9, which is one of the reasons why the Feds are saying they will start cutting rates right now, because CPI is cooling. So we monitor this for our benefit because, as I mentioned before, it's the largest source of our revenue, property tax. Any questions?
Mr. Lefebvre, can you talk about, when you talk about the food index rose, how does that influence our overall expenditures? Is this different than inflationary costs of food?
When the law was passed, when tax cap law was passed back in 1991, and it impacted the Color County, I believe in 94, 96, what then happened, it used to be before the tax cap law was passed. When a school district needed to increase property taxes, they can increase it to how much money they need. But what the tax cap did is it restricted the amount to CPI or 5%, whichever one is lower. So the CPI is a measurement of the key basket of expenses that in urban area people spend money on. For example, we spend money, one big factor on food. We spend money on utilities, that would be gas. We spend money on eating out. So that's what you see here. So for example, there was, if you look at what I laid out here, the index for food went up by a certain percentage, prepared food as well as eating out. So all this does is necessary for us to know this information because that is what is going to determine how high a larger source of revenue, which is property tax levy, is going to be for the next levy that we're going to do. That comes out in January.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? I'm
Yeah.
trying to.
Oh, no, yeah.
break this
The only
down.
thing, I know I ask this all the time. Never remember the exact numbers, but do we use, in the projections, did you use 3 and then 222, or I can't remember exactly what you
Yes,
used?
so what we know the next, the December CPI, for this December, we know it. What that is, that's 3%, right? For the levy that we're gonna do in December.
For the next, for the ones, for the unknowns, for the projections, yeah.
Right,
Did you-
for
what
the
did you use?
unknowns, what I've done is I've actually backed it down to 2%.
2%, okay, so yeah,
Because I
it
see
was
where
3
the
and then
trend
2
of
and then
it-
ongoing,
right.
yeah. Okay,
So
and then it was
initially
$4.5 million on
2.5.
the,
Initially, it was 2.5, but then I reduced it down to 2%
Okay.
because in real time, we see that interest rate is coming down.
Okay.
And the other part I want to point out in this too is, one of the reasons why we did so well last year, as far as revenue was concerned, interest rate was high. And for the first time in a while, we actually have money in the bank. So we actually got bigger yield because the investments that we put our money into, we're getting 5.3, 5.6, which is pretty damn good if you have millions in the bank. But what we know is with interest rate going down though, it's gonna hit us. We wouldn't get the same level of investment income that we got.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So what we are looking at it, we're not gonna do anything crazy. We're going to stay within the municipal investment policy as well as the board policy. But we're gonna look at opportunities for us to try to get as close to that as possible without doing anything crazy. That's the plan. As yields start coming down. So we've been in conversation with our municipal advisor, PMA, to try to come up with a strategy for us to use for investing the funds. We get the second installment of our property tax in September. And we have to make that money last till June of next year. So it's important that in addition to being prudent with expenditure, we also have to invest it in such a way where we can get as much yield as possible without taking any undue risk.
So, to explain this to myself, and to make sure I understand this, so basically anything better than 2 would be an increase, a net increase for that particular factor to
Absolutely.
our fund balance.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, as we stand today, it's 2.9. So do I think it's gonna come in at 2%? Probably not. Between now and December, right?
It's not gonna get to 2%, no.
It's
but
not gonna,
yeah.
but I like being
It
conservative.
might go 2.7, 2.6, right?
I like being
Yeah.
conservative with revenue.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is, yeah. So,
Understood.
yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay.
I'm the only one?
Thank you, Mr. Obafemi.
Thank you.
4 new bus leases, and I know you have, that's on the agenda this evening. Do you want to speak to that?
I think Mr. Board Member Cerrone mentioned this a little earlier. What we have right now, because of the fact that we bus everybody, I mean, we bus everybody, whether they're eligible or not. All the buses that we actually have in our fleet, we're using it. So we have no redundancy. So if we have a breakdown, if we have warranty work that needs to be done, we have no bus that we can use. So in order to create some redundancy, because we know breakdowns will happen, that's why we wanted to lease 4 buses to provide us with that redundancy that we need in case of a breakdown.
Do you want to invite Ms. Mosley up? Do you want to come up?
You want to come up?
Come on up.
Now, you did say that every year they were just leasing 10 buses just because, without any evaluation of what we really needed. So now we have idea that 4 buses is what we're looking at, right?
Yes, to tie us over for the rest
yeah.
of the year. Yeah.
And do those buses have air conditioning?
Those 4 will have air conditioning.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many buses in our fleet don't have air conditioning?
There's about 40 in our fleet that do not have air conditioning.
Okay.
I think that's a really important question because as we have this discussion, it seems like we're probably going to have 1 or 2 of these days every year as long as we're starting school in August. And I hear this all the time. In the old days, we would start on Labor Day and then, right? And I always say the same thing. I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but I always say the same thing. It's people want to get finals done at the high school level before they go into second semester, and that's how we got here. But I do think it's important for us to have this conversation with the community that we're probably going to get 1 or 2 of these days in August moving forward, and that's another expense. I'm going to assume that the school buses with air conditioning probably run us a little bit more than the ones without.
Yes.
Go out on a limb and say that. And so
We also use more gas.
yes.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's 5 miles a gallon?
So I like at some point, like no pun intended, but the rubber meets the road, and you got to figure out what you're gonna do. So thanks.
How many buses in our fleet total?
We
About
have
ish.
156, about 156.
156, okay.
That include hours or how many?
That is district owned. That's not our
District-owned.
outsourced buses. Yeah.
I know.
So we're looking at all kinds of things that we can do to make sure transportation has to be efficient. And I just have to be clear that some of the things that we'll do will not be popular because folks who are getting transferred who are not eligible for it, we can't continue to do that. I can't say that enough. We cannot afford it.
And our,
And there are, sorry, kind of the back topic, but sort of, there are districts that do this already, right? Where they're saying, hey, we're if you're interested in paid transportation because you're within this area, here's how much it costs. I know of one that I know does that.
Every district I've worked for does that. So we do a cost analysis of how much it costs us to run a bus, and we pass that on to parents who opt to use transportation if they're not eligible for it. So we're not losing money subsidizing that, because most people believe that their property tax pays for transportation. Actually, in a given year, we levy $2 million in transportation. And transportation, if you look at the data that I just shared last year, we spend about 16 million. So it doesn't even come close. And the state, when it comes to reimbursement, up till the last 2 years, the state prorates based on appropriation, which means we never get dollar for dollar, even though we're supposed to be entitled to it, but we never get it. There were times before COVID, it was 30%. It's of the amount that we're eligible for, the state only paid us 30% out of that. They do better with special ed. They pay us on average of about 80%. But now with regular transportation in the last couple of years because of COVID, they've actually paid us about 60%, which is still not 100%. So we start up from behind the eight ball.
Is it just SPED or is it SPED and EL as well?
It's mostly SPED.
Okay.
We will come back to this. So this has come tonight for information, and then it will come to the board at the next board meeting for action. So if there are any follow-up questions in between or any wonderings, definitely please reach out. We want to thank you, Ms. Mosley, for being here, and as you
May I
heard.
just ask,
Oh, yes.
did we get multiple bids, or did we only get this one bid?
So we didn't get multiple bids, and I'll tell you why. At this time of the year, there's a shortage of buses. And I'll tell you something that happened. We were actually talking to a vendor about doing a bus lease to bring to the board. 60 of their buses, a school district came in from Canada and put all 60 buses all at once. So they had no bus to actually lease to us. So we have to beg and borrow and cheat for them to be able to commit these 4 buses to us. And another company that we had contacted, they said they wouldn't have a bus to us till December. January. So there's a shortage, just like shortages of cars, there's actually a shortage of buses that's worse than cars.
Can we, when we're putting together the proposal though, can you include that, why it doesn't show multiple bids, and include that there is a bus shortage just for posterity, so it's captured in that
Sure, we'll be happy to
document?
do that. Be happy to do that.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thank you.
I agree. Yeah.
Policies for first read, Dr. Kincaid.
Yep, so in addition to the policies that we reviewed as part of the consent agenda, we also looked at 6 policies. The first policy, 2125, was based on new per diem rates. As part of when we realigned our board policies, we had committed to this policy aligning across our systems. So any travel per diem reimbursement would be aligned if a teacher, administrator, or a board member went to a professional learning opportunity. So we discussed potential new rates in 470, which is resource conservation. The change that is being recommended by ISAB is, instead of a specific percentage goal related to resource conservation, is that the district be able to establish their own goal. For 480, in terms of accounting and audit, IASB is recommending the revolving fund accounts go from 500 to 1,000. The remaining 3 policies are legal reference updates, but placed in this section because it's the additional either reference to school code or public acts. So it's not just changes to the actual legal references, there are additional legal references within that.
Okay, questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Kincaid. Next, I want to invite Dr. Waller and Dr. Paul, and I'm sure Dr. Kincaid as well, welcome you all to speak to these updates regarding the board's request to really think about our profile and the direction, and so we want to bring some monthly information. Did you have a?
Yeah, I just had a really quick question about that last policy.
Oh, policy, I apologize.
When it comes to periodic review of procedures on reduction of solid waste generated by academic blah, 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 it says establish the goal by the district. Where have we ever done that? And to even create a baseline?
Yep. So my understanding is that we have not, so that would have to be part of that procedure and working with operation and the schools in terms of what is even a potential baseline and goal. So that was the discussion within the committee, was where would we start and would it look different at different levels, because the feasibility might be different in K-5 versus 6-8 versus 9-12. So the alignment to establishment of the goal within the district was actually more well received than an arbitrary number existing in the policy.
Right, and every school,
huge need.
50% looks very different in a district depending on where you physically are as well. The reason that I ask is because I obviously, as Jared will always say, is this one of our priorities? You know, we have a lot of priorities, you know, and where does this fall? But can we make sure that this somehow lands intentionally in our strategic plan? Because I think it has a lot of, I think, energy, resources when it comes to conservation, when it comes to saving, you know, to savings with the district. If we're not intentionally setting goals and figuring it out, then we're just using our resources and stuff. So if we could make sure that's part of our, establishing a baseline, and then, year 2 is setting a goal, year 3 is setting a goal, so we just have somewhere to start, because we've looked at this policy before, and I'm like, but we never talk about it, so. Sorry, Dr. Calgatti, you didn't see that I had a question, but go ahead.
In addition, right now, you have an additional question? Or
No.
No, this was very helpful. I'm glad you raised it, so thank you. Dr. Waller and Dr. Paul.
All right. So actually, this is including myself, Dr. Paul, and Dr. Dubiel. So we're going to provide our first update for equity and engagement. So as an equity and engagement department, we will consistently provide updates to the Board of Education, demonstrating how we are creating a foundation throughout our system that is rooted in equity and rightful presence. As the Equity and Engagement Department continues to have interdepartmental collaboration to embed equity resources, lessons, culturally responsive strategies, and professional learning opportunities, we will provide updates here so that there is clarity to the board on our department's alignment and commitment to lifting the 3 foundational practices. Additionally, we will provide updates on how we are building opportunities to connect, communicate, and collaborate with our community through Parent University, Superintendent Advisory Groups, school parent organizations, and additional opportunities as we are developing for this school year.
So I'm providing an update from Learning and Innovation. As a Learning and Innovation department, we will provide the board with monthly updates highlighting our commitment to foundational practices of equity and rightful presence, as well as high quality instruction grounded in culturally relevant teaching practices. These updates will serve as a means to inform the board about the ongoing interdepartmental professional development efforts aimed at the building leaders and staff, ensuring that our educators are equipped with the tools and knowledge necessary to foster inclusive and effective learning environments. In addition, we will provide insights into curriculum and instruction strategies aligned with these principles, supporting our mission to deliver equitable and culturally responsive education to all students.
Do we have what you're reading? No? Oh, okay.
As a diverse learners department, we are committed to effective systems and teams, high quality instruction, and equity and rightful presence. We aim to provide updates that encompass how these foundational practices are embedded in our decision-making processes for the purpose of coherence, timeliness, feasibility, and fiscal responsibility, while upholding quality, pedagogy, and practices that are student-centered for our diverse learners that include early childhood, multilingual learners, and students in special education. Further, these updates will build upon improvements and new highlights that demonstrate collaboration, communication, and strategic approaches for the varying needs of diverse learners.
Can you guys send those to Ursula so she can put them in board docs?
Yep. So essentially, we're committed to what we started to discuss this past summer. So monthly updates related to a variety of data across our system, both academic, behavior, and attendance, to provide updates and information related to our school improvement plans, our 3 foundational practices, our professional learning, and under that umbrella, as Dr. Dubiel mentioned, not only for all students, but also looking more in-depthly at our different subgroups and student representations.
Thank you.
Are there questions or feedback regarding, more generally, we've heard this evening, kind of in terms of the board's governance role around student achievement, as you listened a little bit to what you heard. These are just some general thought points around the direction we'll go regarding the updates. Anything specific that emerged as you listen? This was really more to initiate the conversations. Next month you will get a more formal presentation. We wanted to just start with just kind of some general updates or ideas, and then move into any more specific things that you would want to hear more about. You heard the presentation around the curriculum audit this evening. You've heard, you drafted the board policy. There's direction you've given me. As you listen, are there anything that came up specifically? And of course, whether it's tonight or following the meeting, you don't have to give it right now. But I think that's really the intent, so.
I'm just not an audio learner. I'm a visual learner.
Yes.
I just don't understand where this fits into. I just feel like.
Go ahead.
No, please.
I think I think they're commitment statements, right? Like, these are their commitments to report back to us. I agree, it would be good to have them in writing, just so we can see, what they look like, but they're like committing to bringing us monthly updates on the work that's going on in their different departments. At our committee meeting, we did see a little bit of like a draft of what those updates would look like, or topics, I guess. And my first initial impression, I think, of the updates, or of that visual was, well, that seems right, like those are the things that we should be thinking about, but, or that the board should kind of be aware of. Like, there was 1 month where it's like update like on curriculum stuff. I'm like, okay, cool, we're gonna see that then, and we kind of know what to expect. But one of the things I think we talked about at the committee meeting was that that's a living document, right? Like, we don't want to set out 12 months, like, it's good to think ahead, but there might be times where we need to bring other stuff forward within those updates. But I hear what you all said as commitments to time and space for you all to come to the board and update us on those student achievement items that are obviously so important. Some of the stuff on the original calendar that was shared at the committee meeting made sense, like when we're looking at like the state data, because it comes out at a certain time, we're gonna look at a certain time, right? But there's other stuff that's a little bit more in flux. It could happen here, it could happen here, and so I'm hearing this is a start to their commitment to bring monthly reports back to us.
Thank you.
We will have all this in the weekly update from my meeting with Latanya and Eugene. That calendar and those overviews and those commitments will be laid out in there, so you'll get those then. So that'll be a part of that.
So this is like, Jen, you know how we took the finance report, or not really the finance report, but the finances, and we wanted our community to hear more about the evidence-based funding and all that, and we found how successful that was by continuing to bring that to the board and thus to the community. And so this is kind of like the same concept.
Around student achievement.
Okay, yeah, as long, okay.
Yes.
That helped.
Okay.
And then how it ties to student achievement.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you tell me the acronym ILEAD? It's innovative,
Yes.
learners, equity, diversity. I know that it's somewhere in that range.
Yes, you're so close. It's innovation, learning, equity, adversity, or advocacy, and diversity.
Okay, so all those
Yes.
these departments under this umbrella.
Yes, it's all of our departments together.
So is that our little acronym?
It is our little
I
acronym.
love it. I love it. I'd like a T-shirt.
I like it.
Oh, good, we need another T-shirt.
I think it needs to be we.
She's
We
is
is-
what?
we're-
Trees educate? What is
I
the
saw
E?
pictures with
Equity.
barrier busters.
We already did it back there.
I love that.
Equity, advocacy, and diversity.
All right.
Yeah, you guys got to come up with a T-shirt.
Thank you all for the update.
Okay.
Next, I want to invite Dr. Kincaid to give us an update on the updated e-learning plan that will be brought forward.
Absolutely. Hold on 1 second. So what we had done is we, in response to discussions last spring, we wanted to revise and relook at our current e-learning plan. So we currently use the e-learning plan in lieu of emergency days. So kind of post-COVID, the state did allow that in place of emergency days, that we would be able to, if we had an adopted e-learning plan, We would be able to utilize an emergency day through the e-learning plan for inclement weather or unforeseen circumstances. So the timeline that we have been following with consultation with OEA.
It's moving by itself. I can
Yes.
see it moving.
And we have, is it correct? We have to every 3 years resubmit this to ISB?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
Are we doing this early, or is this, we need to do this?
so, kind of both. So we did submit in 2021, so we are trying to submit it earlier
Got it.
than when we were approved. But in light of the discussions that started in the spring of last year, we wanted to be kind of on the forefront of resubmitting. So the timeline that we've been following is consultation with both OEA and OESPA, because we are bringing recommendations for some change to our current e-learning plan. We did discuss this at the last Equity, Learning, and Innovation meeting. We are coming here today for information. In order to potentially change our e-learning plan, we do have to hold a public hearing. So we would then hold our public hearing on September 23rd, the start of our next meeting, and then potentially go to action for approval of the updated plan. At that point, we would submit to the Regional Office of Education for approval, and then distribute the plan to students, staffs, parents, and the public. We cannot implement any changes to the plan until it has been approved by both our board and the Regional Office of Education, and then distributed to our families and school community. So the two main principles is that we have to ensure access for all students, and that we have to have a minimum of 5 clock hours of instruction or school work. So at this point, we are not recommending any changes to our early childhood plan because of the access to devices. We are not one-to-one with take-home at early childhood. So we are looking to focus on the student work. Our teachers and related services will be available for office hours at the designated time, and then those choice boards will be sent home and also available online. Similarly, our elementary is not one-to-one take-home K-5. So we will be following a recommended schedule, but focus on student work. We will have a variety of office hour opportunities for students to join and ask questions through Google Meets, and then our teachers are also available by phone or email. Our choice boards with lesson materials will be sent home and have actually already started to be sent home, and then are available also online. So the changes that we are recommending is at our secondary level. So currently, our secondary level meets across what you would consider a typical school day. And what we've seen over the last year of implementing this is a 41 or 48-minute period remotely is longer than what we need in order to provide instruction and have students have the opportunity to complete schoolwork. So with the guiding principle of a 5-hour instructional day, the committee came together and talked about 3 different options. One being a shortened day followed by a break, and then time for student support time. Another option was no student support time and extended the class periods amongst the 5 hours. But what the committee settled on is they wanted to do a mixture of both instructional time through a Google Meet and have opportunities for students to seek help. So the junior high will start at 8 o'clock. They currently have a student support time at the start of their day, so we would continue that. The class periods then, periods 1 through 9, would be 20 minutes in length. And then at the end of the day, there would be a 55-minute student support time to give the students opportunities to either asynchronously complete work that they have experienced or participated in throughout the day, or rejoin any of their classes to seek clarification, support, or help from their teachers. The high school schedule will also start at 8 o'clock. The class periods there will be 25 minutes, followed by a 55-minute student support time at the end of the day.
How does that, oh, never mind. I was thinking about the buses, but we don't need buses.
No, so our e-learning day would be when we are implementing remote instruction across the entire district and essentially closing school for that day. In case of ongoing inclement weather, we would use our 5 e-learning days. Then if needed, we would then have to go to the 5 emergency days, in which those are currently blocked off at the end of our calendar after the last day of school. If we would go through our 5 e-learning days, which still count as a student instructional and attendance day, then we would have to do our 5 makeup emergency days. If we've exhausted all 10 of those, then we would potentially apply for active God days.
I think that's an important piece for people to realize, because I've heard a lot about like using these days or abusing these days or whatever. The state already says you got 5, that's it. So you know, there's not going to be, unless somebody changes the law or whatever, there's not going to be a situation where we're taking more than 5 in a year, which obviously we're not trying to even do that. But.
Is the start time currently the same?
So the start time is currently the start of the school day. So for junior high, it is 8:05.
8:05.
I believe, thank you. And the high school is 7:20. So what this does is it standardizes it across 6 through 12. It gives our teachers the opportunity to start their day and be ready for students remotely, and then finish their day. So it gives them time also on either end of the school day.
No, I'm just concerned about the communication aspect, that's all. But as long as we do well with that, then.
Can you clarify what you mean by
Well, as long as
communication?
students know that they're supposed to start at 8 o'clock instead of 7:25 or instead of 8:05 or.
Okay, got
you
it,
know,
thank you.
Because it's.
How long do they get, like, how much notice in advance do they get if they're gonna do an e-learning day?
Well, and also just establish that an e-learning day means you start at 8 o'clock. You know,
No, I'm just saying, like, when would we make that determination, and how much time do parents have to get in line and in order whatever they need?
Well, that's one of the privileges I have as a superintendent. I was bequeathed when I took this role. I tried to ask if any of the members of the team would want it, but they all said no. So you're not it. Everybody said not it.
You're it.
But it is really, I will just say briefly that it's not a light decision, and there's a delicate balance between notice that's too early or too late. And so our team works very hard to the extent possible to give the earliest notice possible. In the event, and we are working on our communication systems, we work very hard. We don't always get it perfectly, but I do know that we work very hard to ensure that we get notice as early as possible without putting us in a position where it was a wrong decision. And I would say last year, based on repeated evidence, every decision was actually the right decision, and I can say that with all due certainty. So
start
now,
watching
some
Channel
people
9
did
at
not
6 in the
like that,
morning.
but I would say that it was every one of the decisions was done with the interest of students, safety first, and staff safety, and ensuring that we were able to be safe in our in all of our buildings. And I would say that we did a good job of that. And I want to thank the team for that in advance, because it's going to be another year of hopefully not too many 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 2 a.m. calls.
E-learning days are not ice cream. They don't make everybody happy.
No.
I have a few questions. Does this new plan align with our new CBAs? Are we all
Yes.
copacetic?
That
Okay.
was the discussions from last spring. So we will be in line once this is approved, both at the board and ROE level.
One of the things that, parents, and we all know this, we're all parents, that it is very hard to, on a dime, figure out the next day and, what you're going to do and so forth. So when the e-learning plan is approved and it goes up on the website, I think it could be helpful if inclement weather included heat, and we prepped for that, because I don't think this is going to be the last time that we have an e-learning day because of heat. And everything that I hear in climate news says that we will continue to have these. And I'm sure my fellow board members received many of the emails that I received about our heat e-learning day. So I think it's just about managing expectations, that we should expect it, and it should be something that we should understand, that we have to look at the whole of the system and do what's best for the whole of the system. So 2 questions that have come up over and over and over, and I personally have received earfuls about, if we could just address them. How are we holding our educators accountable for showing up on e-learning days? There have been, in this, I only heard from high school parents. I haven't heard it from other parents, but I heard it from high school parents, that teachers just literally didn't show up for e-learning days. I'm not necessarily looking for an answer tonight. And the second question is, why can't we just have a good old-fashioned snow day? And so those 2 questions are something that I've heard a lot and got earfuls about, because I think we're still all dealing with COVID PTSD. I think it's really important to put in perspective that it's one day here and one day there. It's not e-learning like we were going through back then. But, those are questions that I think that we should answer and realize that the community is asking.
Can I add 2 pieces onto that? Just like as far as things that we heard, and kind of a response to, not to yours, but just add on. And I want to remind people that not all districts are the same. And if you look at some of the districts that made decisions that day, they are districts that have some similar characteristics to ours. I mean, Caneland has some serious ground to bus. So does Burlington Central. Plainfield left early. Could we have gone that route? I don't know.
Well, they were-
But
Suddenly though, right?
right.
Yeah.
And so, these are districts that, I don't want to say look like us, because they're definitely, there's ways that they don't. But from a standpoint of how large and where they're located and the amount of busing and everything, they really do. So I take exception when somebody says something like, I don't know, Newark went to school. Okay. So I think that's a piece that we always have to remember, is that look at some of the districts and why and what's going on. And the other piece, is no person has said that e-learning is superior to in-person learning. No one said that. No one will say that. By the way, it's just as disruptive if we just took a snow day, I would argue. You're still going to be disrupted. You're going to have kids around anyways. And on top of that, it's still going to disrupt a student's regular schedule. So, you know, I don't know.
Well, I think though, for the heat day, because it was new, it is vital for us to be over communicative into why we made that decision. And as a mom that is on the mom social media links on, you know, social media, it is, there was so much misinformation out there, and I'm sure everybody has heard it. So I think in those cases, and now we'll have memory, we'll be like, oh, we did this last year, you know, maybe we'll have an e-learning day. But I think we need to give, and I think it needs to come from Dr. Calgatti, I'm not saying us, but why we made that decision, and give people the scope of the issue. The scope of the issue is over 2,000 employees, over 17,000 kids, you know, 150 bus drivers. I don't know what the numbers are, but that we have to look at things as a whole, and then putting kids in that environment. I know I'm not happy when I'm in a building or a room that's 85 or 90 degrees. I know as an adult, and then I have to help regulate 25 students. Come on, like, you know, it's a lot to think about. It's not a decision that is made hastily. So just over communicating what went into that decision, and so the misinformation doesn't get so out of control. I was just in shock at some of the things that I read. I was like, that's just not true at all.
Yeah, I'll say a couple things, and I think this is the commitment from the teaching and learning team, is really that we know e-learning could be better and that it's not perfect. And so in the spirit of continuous improvement, we will continue to evaluate the resources, and I know that Dr. Paul and her team will be looking at that and finding ways. I just had meetings with members of our CTE, Career and Technical Education team, who do, you know, if you're you know, you're in a class and you're doing shop, you're not going to take a saw home on an e-learning day, right?
Let's hope.
But when I was talking to some members of our union, they were saying, what if we front-loaded some really engaging lessons that planned for it? And so I would say that as we understand this, we will continue to improve it. And so I'll just say that we accept and we welcome the feedback. Actually, I think it's good. I think that feedback is healthy, and it helps us understand how to strengthen our work. And so I would say that anybody who's reached out directly regarding some of this, we actually had very few. We had a number of people reach out to say thank you for this decision, because it did put students, if you drive around this neighborhood, and I'm not going to go on my soapbox because I know it's getting late, but I will say if you drive around this community on a hot day, turn off your air conditioner and see how long it takes you just to go to the grocery store when you hit a place where there isn't intersection with 2 stop signs, and you have to wait for the bus in front of you and 3 other cars to try to cross flying traffic, and you're sitting there for 20 minutes. Now imagine you're 5 years old sitting in that heat, and then suddenly that ride goes from being a 5-minute ride to suddenly a 30-minute ride. I will say this, board, and I will never put children in a position where I can't 100% guarantee that those children will get home safely without a situation where that heat may potentially hurt a 5-year-old. And I cannot guarantee that on a day where the temperatures on those buses got to 115, 120 degrees, and I could not guarantee that. Because the last thing I would want is to get a phone call that a 5-year-old was on the back of the bus, and because we had a substitute bus driver who got stuck at multiple intersections and an accident in an area of town where we do not have appropriate infrastructure, for the child to suddenly be hurt because I made a decision because I didn't want people to have to miss out on something, I'm not going to do that, folks. And so I would say anybody who has any questions about it, please send me a call. I have a 5-year-old, so maybe I can get emotional. So,
and right now,
but I would
I
say
can't
that
get from my house to OE. It's entirely under construction.
Right.
And on Minkler, it is one-way traffic right now. One-way traffic. I don't even to even think about the possibilities of what could happen.
Yep.
So I fully supported the decision. And just so we're clear too, not every student does not do well in e-learning. A lot of students do well on e-learning. I don't want,
That's true.
I just, sometimes we do a disservice. So my old
Thank you.
district, we had e-learning. We had an entire alternative program. So some students excel during it. So
That's true.
just want to give
Thank
a
you.
little shout out to that. But it's a tough decision to make, but I fully supported it. It's more about the communication of what went into the decision that I think will help, and then muscle memory for next year. If it happens again, we will have gotten this out of the way.
Thank you.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
We are now adjourned.